I think it's staggering, especially in the legal community, how normal it is to work like 80 plus hours a week. And I have friends who became lawyers and they love it and they make a lot of money, and I'm not faulting them for that. I don't fault anybody for wanting to better themselves, make a good living, and work hard. But I definitely understand the need to sort of combat the burnout, which I feel like is what you guys do. And because the legal community has such a stigma around it, where you need to be working harder, you need to put in more hours, you need to wake up at 5 and go to bed at 2 a.m. And just outwork the competition. So I know those are some of the bigger misconceptions, but what are some of the biggest misconceptions that people often have about occupational burnout? It's obviously, especially in the legal community, but in general as well.
I think the biggest one that I see is just this misconception about how dire the problem really is, and that if you just take like a couple days off, like a long weekend or something, that you're going to be better. And it just doesn't work like that. It's, the process of getting burnt out is kind of a slow creep, like it happens over time. And so, it's also going to be a process over time to get out of that and get back to kind of this like equilibrium. Cynthia, do you have anything else on that?
Yeah, and one of the points you made, Nick, about attorneys working so hard, it's as if it's a badge of honor. Like I know I started out in big law, and that was in 1982. I started in big law in Philadelphia, and it was, if you weren't there on the weekends, there was big trouble. I mean, everybody went in on the weekends. And so it's that badge of honor. And so what this type of culture then, it ingrains secrecy in you because you don't want to show your vulnerability. So that's one of the misconceptions about burnout is that don't tell anybody, and that you're better off not seeking help, that if you're burnt out, that's a sign of weakness, a sign of vulnerability. Keep that stiff upper lip. But I argue to the contrary, that people who actually do seek help, that do deny that really insidious misconception that they're the ones that are going to be the strong ones. And here's another misconception, is that it's only me. And I think that if you would think about other attorneys that you think are so aggressive, so strong, just so solid, that you may remember the old adage, don't judge a book by its cover. And because that cool exterior may just be covering up a real hot mess. And the main cause, here's what a lot of people think about burnout, is that the main cause of burnout is working too many hours. It's a factor, those 60, 80-hour consistent weeks, it is a factor, but there's other factors that come into play. And think about if this sounds familiar to you. Unmanageable workload. Have you ever been there? And that's that combination of really long hours and too many tasks. And so the studies show that occupationally, that burnout increases at 50 hours a week. Then it really goes up at 60 hours a week. But the factors that are the real defining causes is lack of engagement in your work. So that means it just isn't important to you any longer. And then also not feeling like you're being respected. The pressures and the deadlines that are put on attorneys externally are bad enough. But I think sometimes some attorneys can be a cause of some of their own problems. And that's through procrastination. Because if you think about procrastination, putting off until tomorrow what you should do today. And I here's what I've heard so many who procrastinate. Oh, I am a former procrastinator, by the way, so I can talk about this, is that I do my best work at the last minute. And my question to those people, how would you know? When is the last time you didn't do your work at the last minute? So there's some of that self-sabotaging behavior.
And procrastination really is just emotional avoidance. It's like you have this thing and like it's affiliated with this negative emotion because it's like, oh, for whatever reason, you're resisting doing it, right? And so meditation what are we doing in meditation is like increasing the space between the thought and then the action, or really reaction, because we're in such a reactive state these days, it seems. But it really does give you that pause, so then you can, you can have that distance to be like, oh, and recognize like, oh, why did I suddenly just like pivot to, oh, I need to clean my entire house instead of work on this memo that's due at 3:00, right? And then you can be like, okay. And then you can actually like then make a decision from this informed place of being able to see like what's really going on in that moment.